Welcome back to the 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we're speaking about some heavy stuff. So let's just get into it. Data is like gold. It appreciates in value all the time. So
exponentially.
Think of data as sound, starting with yourself. All of your movements and bodily functions generate sound. The space immediately around your body makes sounds. The bedroom, your entire home, the appliances in that home, other people, animals, buildings, neighborhoods, towns, cities, nature. Now imagine microphones assigned to record all those sounds. That is what big data is. Now, each piece of mainstream technology that is introduced is a revolving door. Out goes convenience and innovation, and in comes compromise, theft, and even death. So what we're really speaking about is how your information is taken for granted by you, but not by those tech companies and governments, foreign and domestic, that really want to utilize that information. We grew up in a world where labor generated money to sustain families and individuals. But now there are things that generate money that don't require barely any effort at all. It's your methods of habit and your control and your interactions and your choices that are generating all this information about you. And everybody that you know is doing the same exact thing. And all this information is being bought, sold, and traded by legal and illegal entities. The problem is that most people are unaware of what's going on. And every once in a while, there'll be a news story that pops up and it says, oh, there was a data breach and the information of 50 million Americans was sold or something like this. And then everybody's like, oh, that's something
no big
else.
deal.
No big deal. But yet it is a big deal. It is a huge deal because it's not something that you notice right away unless it was something like your credit card information that was stolen. And then you had all these charges run up on your credit card. No, you don't notice it right away. But then it starts to creep up and make its appearance known in your life. So, for example, in 2013, data broker Experian sold the personal data of 2/3 of all adult Americans in the U.S. to an organized crime syndicate in Vietnam. The Social Security numbers of 200 million Americans are now in the hands of thieves. The Vietnamese crime organization used a U.S. private investigations group as a front for the sale of the data. So now they have all the means to open new credit cards and get bank loans and create identities, purchase houses, all types of things with your name on it. So when you first started hearing about identity theft about 15 years ago, maybe more, but you started to hear about it and it was like, oh, that's crazy. There'd be somebody that you know that knows somebody it happened to. And then it became, you know somebody. And then it became you. And then it became everybody that you know had their identity stolen. And it's a problem that's not going away. It's increasing. And so these problems are problems that we help to create because we put our trust into these public and private organizations that store all of our information. And we don't call them to question about what they're doing with it. Because in exchange, we get convenience. We get online banking. I have always been super skeptical about online banking. For the longest time, I gave that shit the sideways eye. And I still do. But, I don't move any major money, through my bank online. No, I don't do none of that shit. I walk into a bank and I sit down at a desk and I talk to a loan officer or I talk to the bank manager or I go approach the teller. I go talk to a person.
Look, the issue is it's so commonplace that you almost feel like a whack job even speaking up. Like, hey, man, it's online banking. I know you don't, but I'm saying back in the day, online banking, that was some whiz kid shit. That was some hacker shit waiting to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody, man, I don't trust it. I want to speak to a person. Remember, that was a big deal, like when we were kids, like your dad or something like that, my mom, like, hey, I want to speak to a person.
No, what's the name got that joke? Lil Rel. Representative.
Look, like I said, we're laughing about it, but I'm trying to tell you, in the '80s, you wouldn't think of no shit like that. Don't get me wrong. I understand we didn't have the internet, but just the idea of having your information on a computer where anybody can access it. And now it's so commonplace. Like, if you even like, man, I don't trust this thing. Wait, what's wrong with you, dude? Don't you want to buy stuff on Amazon? Don't you want to buy stuff on Wish? What's wrong? And so,
Dude, whenever I buy anything online, I use gift cards.
yep.
I
Well,
have
okay, I
been
stopped.
using gift cards for the longest time. I go to the store, I load up the money at customer service, and then I go buy whatever the fuck it is I want to buy.
Look, I stopped doing that. I do use it now, but for years, you know this. Like I've had iPad, iPhone for years. I ain't never had no Apple Pay. I always went and got me an Apple Card and loaded it up. You know what I'm saying? Even to purchase movie. Do you know how inconvenient that shit is? Yes, and I still do that shit. I still go to Walgreens and get like a pack of 20, a pack of five, $20, whatever it is, and just load them up on my iPad or give it to my kids. Like, look, because I feel some kind of way with my credit card being out there. I just do.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so. You see what's happening to people's information.
What's the first time a data breach affected you? Because the first time with me was I'm sitting here one day and they said 50,000 people that shop with TJ Maxx and Marshalls were because that's when I found out TJ Maxx and Marshalls was the same store. I didn't know that, and I'm sitting here like, well, I know they got my information because I've been buying clothes from TJ Maxx and Marshalls since '88. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And so like, it's so commonplace where we're convincing ourselves it's normal, and what my brother just told you is not. To think that being robbed is normal is not. To think that putting yourself in a position where you kind of set yourself up for it, that's not normal. That they convince you that it's normal. So what we're saying is that so now when you hear these stories, here's the argument that you have with people. This is liberal, conservative, whatever. Whenever you talked about like, hey man, this vaccine, they can track you through the vaccine. They can track you through the cell phone right here. You see this right here? They can track. I'm like, that's nothing to brag about. That's not a good thing. The fact that you're so comfortable with it that you've already convinced yourself that since I know they can track me through my cell phone. There's ways around that. Everything from taking your battery out to not having a cell phone to leaving your cell phone at home. Hell, we all watch the first 48. How many of these little niggas get arrested because the cell phone pinged somewhere near the? Hey, dude, I was at home. Well, you're ping right here. I'm like, so we even use the term ping off a cell phone tower. Stop making that shit commonplace. Leave your cell phone at home. You do not need. No one needs 24-hour access to you. And this whole thing that I'm a parent, I need to know where my kids are. See, maybe if your kids obeyed you, you wouldn't have to worry about that bullshit.
Right. But see, you were just talking about Americans being tracked through their phones. That's exactly how people are tracked now because they have proxy agents. So it used to be they would hire a federal agent or a local law enforcement to get in a car and go and follow you around physically.
Go look for you. Yep.
They don't have to do that. They still do that to a limited degree, but mostly they can use your phone. They can use your social media accounts. People are telling themselves all the time, I'm here. I was here eating this food. I was here eating this sandwich. There's a rapper that was killed, Young Dolph, in Tennessee outside a cookie shop that he bragged about. Well, guess what? They knew how to go and kill his ass and where to go kill him at because he was at the cookie shop eating.
I was there once or twice a week.
See? And that's the thing. It's like people sharing too much. It's
you're not a celebrity though. I think that's a big part of it is that we have this desire for celebrity. Like, hey, I'm famous. They care. No, you're a target. You're making yourself a target.
But the thing is that like those celebrities get something in return. Like they get millions and millions of dollars in notoriety, and all you're getting is notoriety and probably a bullet in the fucking head. That's the problem, man. Like everybody wants to be Chucky from that movie Fresh. I'm kicking it live, homie. I'm busting the stupid moves and don't realize that you ain't getting shit in return for it. Like you giving that pussy up real easy.
I can't think of the comedian's name. Like, dude, he said, man, nigga be walking around with a coat saying Raheem clocking doo-doo-dumb dollars on the back of it. All of a sudden the cop, hey, Raheem, what are you doing over there? Are you selling drugs? How do you know my name? How you know my name? Like, look, you sit there. The thing is that you're so quick to blame somebody else for your own downfall when you line these dominoes up on your own. And like I said, I'm guilty of it. Like for a long time, I didn't have a Facebook account, or I'm lying. I had a Facebook account a long time ago, but I never used it the way we do now. Now, if I log into a game, they want your Facebook. Then they use that to save the game. They're like, well, shit, I don't want to start over. Little stuff like that. Look, play the system. It's not hard. How hard is it for you to set up a Facebook account just for gaming? How hard is it for you to set up a Facebook account just for business? You need multiple accounts, just like you need multiple emails. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's not work. Not when you're trying to protect yourself.
Hey,
protect your.
It comes down to stop thinking like everything is fair and honest.
Stop thinking that being screwed is part of life. How about that part?
Hey, stop thinking that everything is apple pie and bald eagles, because this country was founded by pirates, okay? And these privateers, they broke off and started their own shit with the same pirate mentality. They gonna put on powder wigs and them fluffy, Michelangelo shirts and all that bullshit, but they're still pirates. People get so caught up in the pomp and circumstance and don't realize that this is all piracy, man. But listen, here's an example of how sad it really is. Because in 2013, Kaspersky Lab detected 200,000 new malware programs per day. 200,000 per day. That's detected. Only 5% could be eliminated. So that leaves 95% to wreak havoc on everything.
Do you remember the first virus that your computer got? The first time you got a virus that you knew the name of? How's that sound?
Yep.
Michelangelo. That's the one I got. I remember I was on MySpace. I just got a computer. My homeboy helped me, like, hey man, I'll pay for it. It was the homeboy. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll pay you back. So I get this computer. It was made by this local company. And I just got into MySpace and talking to chicks on MySpace about to meet somebody. And I remember this chick was hitting me back. All of a sudden, I got the Michelangelo virus.
Yep.
Man, I remember seeing that
back then, like 80% of all the viruses came from porn. And knowing you was probably on some fucking porn site fucking around.
Back then, nah. I remember getting it. I think I got it from work. I had to open some emails from work. It was so bad that work gave you remember your job. My job gave us the free fix. Like, look, log on. If they sent an email out, look, send this to your home personal email. This will take care of it. Yeah, whatever. Nah, man, I got that shit. And I remember when they showed the dude's face on CNN, I was like, man, I want to beat that. I don't know what I expect him to look like, but I was like, man, as soon as I saw that dude's face, I want to go beat that nigga's ass. You motherfucker. You fucking up my sex life. Shit, what the fuck wrong with you, man? I think the concept of people fucking up shit just to fuck up shit is something that was foreign. I guess we knew about it, but that nigga did that shit. But then
when it hits home, it's real.
Yeah, like okay, you've known me for years. Before we were friends, I remember the first act of random violence I could think of was when somebody had stole like my basketball out my backyard. And my mom said, don't leave your basketball in the backyard. So I left it back there. And like the next day I come back, it's not there. And I'm like, did I bring it in? I couldn't even conceive that some evil Cobra motherfucker, G.I. Joe, came in and stole my shit. And so at that point, that's when you become aware. Like your first time becoming aware of there's no good doers out there. You know what I'm saying? There's people that just do shit for the fuck of it. Now, true enough, I'm sure they derive value from my basketball, but hell, probably somebody I knew. But yeah, that's the shit that you don't think about. Yeah, it's the exact same way in our adult lives now. So you got people fucking shit up just for the sake of it.
Check it out. There was a movie came out like 10 years ago called Catch Me If You Can. Yeah. And it was about the life of a con man named Frank W. Abagnale. And he was played by Leonardo DiCaprio. And the guy that was pursuing him was an FBI agent played by Tom Hanks.
Tom
Really
Hanks.
good
Yep.
movie. This guy was super slick, right? He fooled people into thinking he was a doctor. He fooled people into thinking he was an airline pilot. Dude, crazy shit. So there's a
Just conversation.
there's a famous quote from him. It says, "What I did in my youth is hundreds of times easier today. Technology breeds crime."
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. Anytime there's bureaucracy, anytime the more bureaucracy you have, the more ability you have to be robbed or to be dishonest or for somebody to derive personal gain from it. I'm using my white voice. Derive personal gain. Look, we make fun of it in other countries when you're like, you got to bribe police officers and bribe politicians just for you to get a business permit. Well, what do you think happens when you have layers and layers of bureaucracy? You just got layers and layers of dishonesty. Shit.
Mm-hmm. So the data cycle runs 24 hours a day. And it's part of the reason why I tell people that I know to turn off your router in your house while you are sleeping. That's one of the reasons. The other reason is dirty electricity that's generated by that router, which a lot
Literally
of people
unhealthy.
will
Just
put
unhealthy.
near their bedroom. Okay, and here you are sleeping in this sarcophagus of dirty electricity, and it's slowly breaking down and destroying the cells of your body. Why do you think Americans look so old? Because we're in such close proximity to technology all the time and the stress. But listen, my point is that beginning in the year 2014, they began to monitor this. But each and every minute of the day, we send 2,204,166,667,000 emails. Listen, there are 2 million Google searches every minute of the day. There are 684 pieces of content that's shared on Facebook every minute of the day. There are 100,000 tweets on Twitter sent out every minute of the day. 47,000 apps downloaded from the Apple Store every minute of the day. 48 hours of new video is uploaded on YouTube every minute of the day. 36,000 new photographs on Instagram. 34 million new messages sent on WhatsApp every minute of the day. So basically every 10 minutes, we create as much information as we did the first 10,000 generations of human beings.
I think the issue is, why do we need it? I think, let me clear that up. Some of this shit is just extra. It really is.
So much. Probably 95% of it is.
Like, what do you gain from this? What value do you get? How does it help you or your family? How does it help you make money? How does it make you safer or whatever? And that's another thing. That's how they get you too, with the whole safety one. Or we've always talked about China and the social engineering and the game, and what they're trying to do in America. But the thing is, like, we're volunteering our services. We're giving this shit up without even a fight. It beguiles me when people sit here and think that this big business has your best interest at heart. Big pharma has your best interest at heart. Like what did Dr. Sebi say? He said a country where the cure is for sale, and they give you medicine. This is another but a large insane asylum. And we don't see it that way because we can justify it logically. And we argue about vaccines and Joe Rogan and all this other goofy shit the whole time, that while we're fighting each other, these businesses are getting stronger and our country is just going by the wayside. Look, stop letting people fuck you over and take what's yours. Shit. Big Data, talk about one of the things that sparked this conversation. We had watched this video where this guy talks about, he's like, hey,
Dr. Robert Epstein.
About Google becoming, in bed with China. I think the book is that How Google Rots Your Brain. Is that the title of the book?
Yeah, it's the title of an article.
And he talks about how when he did a search, and he said based on that search, Google send you right to certain places they want you to go. Google could literally change the definition of a word. They can change stuff just by how it guides search. And then Google contacted him and said that, hey, you got breached. You're like, well, how do you know I got breached? Who made you the breach police? You know, and he talks about these different instances, excuse me. And one of the ones he talks about was, he said, prime example was Nest. Nest was a home thermostat that was super popular. You know, you can control your thermostat, you can do all this other stuff. Well, then Google buys it for so many millions of dollars, almost $1 billion, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, that Nest thermostat now has a phone, has a camera, excuse me, and a microphone in it.
Now check this out. But you have to explain the motive behind that. Why would they want this technology and why they want to use it? So it goes back to 2016 when Google published a paper, and it's called The Selfish Ledger. The Selfish Ledger, it describes 5 different attributes about a person. And it's about our actions, our decisions, our preferences, our movements, and our relationships. And so it changes and evolves over time, this document or this collection of information about who we are. And this was actually based on the studies of a eugenicist, a French eugenicist named Lamarck. And to eugenicists and big data engineers, this selfish ledger, or this human ledger, is considered a epigenome. And it's an evolving thumbnail sketch of every person. So think about that right there. So there's a lot of these people in tech that are atheists, right? And they're into scientism because they have no faith. They have no connection to their spirit, to their true animus. And so they fall back on scientists and they worship at the altar of science. And so they look at these guys like Lamarck and these eugenicists to tell them what we really are, or what they think we really are.
But here's the crazy part. Whenever you bring these different conversations up, science, literally, you talk as if science doesn't change. Science changes all the time.
That's right. The science is never settled.
No.
If you ever hear somebody say the science is settled, that person is a shill.
Look, and the thing is, for instance, so many of these sciences that psychology, for instance, how did it get its start? You know the answer: phrenology. Now, for those who don't know what phrenology is,
it's based on eugenics. Go.
It's not just an album by the Roots. How about that? Phrenology was when they would take a skull of a black man, take a skull of a white man, take a skull of a Native American man, and they would fill it full of marbles. And whichever one held marbles, I mean, you had the bigger head, so you must be smarter. Literally, that's racism is how we have modern day psychology. It was about proving that the white man was superior. I shouldn't say all. Many of these sciences today were always about proving the white man superior. That's why eugenicists and eugenics is still around to this day, because so many of these, for so many of these sciences to catch traction was based on that. So all these white men had a personal stake in it. It's just like today when we talk about, okay, who does the funding for the research? That's who dictates what they find. Because if you find something that the Catholic Church or the funding agency doesn't like, they'll stop funding you. So you can't take that chance, right? So this is the exact same thing back then. So whenever you hear my brother talk about eugenicists, that's because so many of these different sciences was based on that fucked up shit.
It's based on superiority complex.
Or a desire thereof, yeah. Look, phrenology is where modern day psychology comes from. Anybody can look that up. So the idea that this science is definite, because that's what these people are trying to tell you. Like, look, I believe in science. Once you say you believe, you've already fucked some shit up. That becomes your religion. That's not what it is. If you say you follow science, fine, but you just need to be aware that at some point in time that science could change, or they can make a new discovery any moment. The idea is that what they're trying to say is that you follow religion and you follow God, and God can't be proven. But even that book, Darwin's Black Book, or Darwin's Black Box, is this book that talks about Darwin. Even they admit, like, the number of species on this planet could not come from evolution.
See, Lamarck was a predecessor of Darwin. He came before Darwin. So that means Darwin looked at that and said, well, maybe I can improve on that some, which means that he felt like it needed work.
But don't forget the other part about there's the biggest part about Darwin is that his theory wasn't alone. It was somebody else. So Darwin had to beat him on wax. Darwin had to get his book out first. Once he found out somebody was doing similar research, he had to get that book out. So again,
what you don't hear about is that Darwin was an occultist. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this guy was into seances and all the spiritualist stuff that was popular at the time.
But even then, he also have a dilemma about religion. He's like, look, what's going to happen to my soul if I put this book out? What's going to happen to me if I put this book out? He was afraid. Look, what we're trying to tell you is this whole idea that science is a definite, and the idea that people that follow science is superior. A lot of these people following science, a lot of these people, and again, me and you joked about this. You have a guy like Elon Musk who's autistic. You can't tell this dude can't deal with people. You can't tell this guy doesn't like talking.
But they want to normalize that. They want to normalize that on the spectrum behavior and get everybody having side effects from vaccines and children being born on the spectrum, which is increasing rapidly because of vaccines, and the data is there to show that.
So what is the motivation? Is because that's more people like him. He doesn't care about people being successful, and people give him you give him way too much credit for being successful. But the fact is that he wants more people like him, so people who are socially inept, people who can't function socially, so they have to create situations where they don't. Look, there's other people that don't. There are other people who are recluses. Look at Brock Lesnar. He's like, look, I literally don't like people. He doesn't like people. He's like, look, I grew up in South Dakota where I was away from everybody, where I hunted all the time. And I like seclusion myself, but it's not because I don't like. It's not because I can't function. It's because I don't like people. I mean, I don't dislike them to where, I hope he died. No, not like that. But I'm like, sometimes I get fed up, and I like going out in the country. You know where I like to go. I like to go where my family is in the middle of nowhere, and I just fuck around and fish, or I'll walk around and just look at stuff.
Look,
but that's not because I can't deal with people. That's because I don't like it.
No, it's because you have to decompress and get away from all those radio waves and cell phone towers and all the dirty. But hold on. Here's the thing, man. So your data is taking all the time. You know what? Before I get into this, go ahead and finish your point.
No, okay, it's 2 points. First, your data has taken on a life of its own. That's
there it is.
But the other thing was, hey, we all like watching Ghost Hunters, and they sit there and tell you, like, look, when the wiring is bad, literally people will go into the basement and they're like, oh man, I feel like I'm being watched, or they call it a terror cage, where they have a bunch of bad wiring and it gives off radio waves and stuff, and people are uncomfortable or scared, or they have a feeling. That's what's happening 24 hours a day when your wireless router is on. You're literally feeding these waves into your own head.
But see, what nobody is really paying attention to is that the possible mental health defects from all this.
Look, we talked about this shit. Well, okay, when the 5G cell phone towers first came out, that was the big thing, was the low level radio poisoning. And everybody like, they're all over that shit now because we're dealing with the coronavirus. And some people said it was the coronavirus. Look, radioactive poisoning has the exact same effect as having a cold. Congestion, runny nose, ulcers, all this different stuff, diarrhea. You can get that from being around these damn cell phone towers. And nobody wants to understand that their radiation does not get better. That's the argument I had. Well, we've talked about this. I had an argument with somebody about the cell phone. That they're better. They're not. These give off more microwaves than the original cell phones we had, the ones that were big and clunky. These things do all these functions. They're on all the time. Hell, your damn cell phone, they tell you shut it off on the airplane. People don't. But if you talk to a pilot, I got a friend that's a pilot. He said, man, look, he said, I used to have a BlackBerry. My BlackBerry wouldn't mess up it would update while we're flying, mess up all the damn the function of all the things. And he's like, look, he said that stuff is real. People use their cell phones are not supposed to, and all that other stuff. We become so selfish to where I can't be away from my cell phone for 5 seconds. I can't worry about the safety of others. I need my own convenience. I need to be able to either do my work, or I need to look at Facebook, or I need to do Instagram and look at somebody's boobs shake and fuck everybody else. at what point does that sound like, okay, so you don't care that you can crash a plane, but you got to look at this, you can't wait? You're that inconsiderate, excuse me? Fucking idiots.
Dude, so people download free apps on their cell phones all the time, and they don't really read the fine print to see what they're giving up for this quote unquote free piece of software. So, for example, Angry Birds, played by millions and millions of people. Angry Birds has generated so much information and data that there's 1.7 billion Angry Birds game players, right? Users. And the NSA, instead of copying what that programmer was doing, using that information, they just took the information from that software developer and used all the data that was being generated by those Angry Birds users.
Look, it's simple. We talked about this before. Back in the day, the government needed a subpoena or needed a warrant to get your information. All they got to do is buy stock in a company now. If this company has some information they want, government buys stock, now they're part owner. They no longer need permission to look at your information because you gave them permission when you signed away that waiver, when you marked that box. Like, do you understand that the new user, whatever, blah, blah, blah? Yes. You just gave away your rights.
Dude, okay, so the problem with all this is that a lot of these trends start in the underground crime rings, with hackers and cyber crimes and all that stuff. And so what happens is governments wind up hiring these people to work for them. And then what winds up happening is these government intelligence agencies begin adopting these tactics from these criminals and using them on the public. And so the same thing has happened throughout time. For example, in feudal Japan, as the Warring States period was starting to end and ninjas were no longer needed, what Tokugawa Ieyasu, the Tokugawa government, there were two main clans. There's Iga and Koga. And the Iga ninjas became gardeners in the palace. All right. The Koga became the police detectives. So samurais were the police, but the ninjas were the detectives. That should tell you something. Okay. Because samurais are always considered like the top flight of all the warriors. And they were the cops. But ninjas were detectives because they worked in intelligence. So check this out. So what happened while this was happening, when they were taking the swords away from samurais, they created these martial arts to pacify them. Jiu-jitsu and karate, right? And judo and kendo and iaido. They take these swords away and they needed something to keep these samurais busy. And so then you had these ninjas, who were these warriors who lived in mountains, who were all called to do the dirt that samurais wouldn't do. And so when this type of life was being phased out, they were like, yo, we still need these dudes. We're going to put them to work for us. And I'm going to keep the ninjas, the Iga, close by doing the spying within the castle and on government people. And then I'm going to have the Koga doing the detective work out in the streets. Keeping the ear to the street, bringing it back to me. The same thing happens with cyber crimes, cyber criminals, and hackers. And now those people work for the government. So you're asking like, well, why y'all doing a show on this? If you have to ask that question, just turn it off right now. For real. Just stop listening to this show. Because what we're doing is we're laying out the landscape that we live in now. Because the world that we grew up in does not exist anymore. No matter what generation you're in, it's gone. That's how fast it keeps changing. And everything about what you knew has changed in the past 5 days. Because that's how fast things are developing. I told you, in one day, 200,000 malware programs have been created. 200,000 in one day. And that was in 2013. Listen, that was 8 years ago. So, of course, everything 8 years ago is old as fuck now. And it's especially old as fuck in the tech world. And so now the problem is we're getting into virtual world, virtual reality, augmented reality, the Oculus Rift with the goggles and all that shit. Yo, that's where everything is going. But see, let me step back for a second because we need to talk about the Internet of Things. Now, Duct Tape went into that briefly, and he was talking about how Nest was a fancy thermostat that kept your house comfortable, right? Now, the problem is... It
learned your habits. It was a good thing.
Yeah. But see, it wasn't just metadata that it was recording. There was a microphone in it. It had a microphone that could hear you down the hall brushing your teeth. And it could tell how often a person was brushing their teeth. So then they would connect to your network, your local network, and then they would point ads to you about dental care products. Or they would send you ads for the local dentist in the area.
Or, okay, do you have a healthy sex life? Because it's listening to you have sex. It can tell how many times you had sex.
Or the lack of it.
Or if you and your wife are arguing or husband are arguing. Or there's so many different things that's wrong with this situation. There was another one.
There was this girl in the UK that she was searching online through the family computer in the living room, and she was searching online for certain types of soap, for a shampoo, and this is non-allergenic shampoo, and so it thought that she was pregnant, and so it started sending her these suggestive push ads for pregnancy products and diapers and like all these baby, infancy products and stuff. So the parents then start seeing all this, and they go and ask her like, yo, are you pregnant? Are you looking up all this stuff? And of course, you can imagine the shit show that ensued after that.
They think she's lying. Look, okay, here's another one that's common. Whenever you add a new app, you gotta do. It says, "Hey, this app wants to access your speaker, or this app wants to access your phone, your camera." It was
Instagram asks that all the time.
Yeah, sometimes some of this shit doesn't need access, but there's a program you can run right now. And you can look at your phone and see what those apps are doing. I forgot what it's called. You click on it, and literally your camera is on, and it's looking at your entire house. And it's basically zooming in on everything in your house, where your TV is, the type of couch you have. And so then all of a sudden you start getting ads for matching furniture. You start getting ads for wall. You got a flat screen TV. You need a wall mount.
Hey, stop. Your phone. Most phones have two cameras, a front facing and a back facing.
Yep.
Take a piece of tape, take a piece of blue painter's tape that you get at Home Depot and put it over the one that faces you. Okay? So that you can go on taking pictures with that phone, but the camera will not be turned on without your permission because that camera can't see anything through that blue tape.
Look, what we're saying is literally when you try to have a conversation with somebody, they say, "Oh, you're crazy. You're paranoid." I'm not paranoid. It's true. I mean,
I'm vigilant. I'm vigilant.
I want to keep my anonymity. I want to keep my personal life personal. I want to stay, and here's, look, I got kids. It's really hard when you try to tell your kids, hey, you don't need no Oculus, no mic, no, what's the new thing? Google Assistant. You don't need that Google Assistant. It turns the TV on for me, Dad. It does this. I'm like, okay, Miles. Or when they're with their mom, well, I thought it was a good idea. No, you didn't. They gave it to you free. Look, if that, as much as expensive as that shit is, going back to the conversation we had 4 or 5 podcasts ago about the Chinese drones and these cheap drones sending information back to China. It's espionage. That's built-in espionage. So back in the day, they used to have to hire James Bond and people to sneak up and get your information. Now, you just give it yourself. Or you'll buy a product and you spy on yourself, not realizing that there's a data stream going back to the emperor. It's crazy. So, look, if your information is so valuable, like old boy says, how come they ain't paying you for it? And second, whenever you watch these shows about Hoover, is it Herbert? Which Hoover? J. Edgar. Excuse me. Whenever you watch these shows or documentaries or read these books about J. Edgar Hoover and the fact that he had everything on all these people. Most recently, I watched the A&E documentary on Hugh Hefner. Watch that shit. Do you know the reason Hugh Hefner never got in trouble? It's not because he wasn't one. He's another dorky, nerdy motherfucker that basically built a society around himself to get pussy. But if you pay attention, come to find out, he had that whole the Playboy Mansion was full of microphones and cameras. So they would invite all these local people out there, like police chiefs and senators and all these media guys and women too. And they would get out there and they would fuck around, have sex with these Playboy bunnies, and they were cheating on their wives. And he had info on them. So if blackmail is that powerful, where this guy can literally be a pimp in plain sight for many years, it's the same thing with you. Who's to say they won't blackmail you? There's actual malware out there right now where, if you watch porn sites, they'll try to hit you up for money. Hey, we'll let everybody know what's in your browser history if you don't give us $2,500. People have been gotten for that. You got a lot of people that watch gay porn by themselves. Whether they're gay or not, that's their business. But that's still something that's still something personal they don't want out there. Anybody who gets access to your cell phone in this day and age, or your internet browser in this day and age, can embarrass you, can ruin people. And then whenever the government tries to come in there, we're looking for pedophiles, we're looking for child porn and shit like that. That's great. But you got pedophiles in the government. Who the hell's looking for them? You have real pedophiles, the people who are touching kids, not just looking at pictures. So that was my issue with the whole R. Kelly thing. Do you guys realize that the first time R. Kelly got in trouble was because he was looking at child porn, but not because he was having sex with children? Not because he was having. That tells you the irony in how stupid our laws are. That it's more illegal for you to look at a picture of a child than it is for you to actually have sex with somebody under the age of 15 or 16. Or 14 or whatever, because we know he was having sex with those people. So he gets caught having sex, don't get in trouble. He gets caught with some pictures on a couple cell phones. Oh yeah, that's when he actually got in trouble. That's the hypocrisy of these people.
So a lot of this is about the perception of reality, and propaganda is alive and well and has been working for at least a few decades now in this country, and people don't realize it. There was a Russian newspaper about 10 years ago called the St. Petersburg Times, ran an investigative report revealing that several covert organizations exist, and they hire people to post pro-Kremlin articles and comments online. Now, they created campaigns to smear the reputation of the opposition parties, and each person is paid $36 an hour. $36 for an 8-hour shift, to make a minimum of 100 posts. So these people understand the power of propaganda because it's not new to their country. Now, of course, it was on full blast during the Soviet Union, and that ended in 1991. But they kept the propaganda going at any chance they could. And so they're doing that now online. And so, yes, this points to how Russian troll farms are real. In Russia, from Russia, and they're also springing up in all the former Soviet areas like the Ukraine and Belarus and Bulgaria and all that stuff. But so it's not just Russia, because the U.S. is doing the same thing. Because in 2011, CENTCOM, Central Command, which is the U.S. DOD, gave a $2.76 million contract to an unnamed California tech company to create fake online profiles and to post pro-American ideas on social media. Now, this was part of a larger project called Operation Earnest Voice, and that was created to combat Al-Qaeda propaganda online. Because what they would do is Al-Qaeda and probably the Israeli intelligence group, they would send thousands and thousands of text messages to all the phones in that area. So all the phones in this area were getting all this information. And see, that's also when you would see these black triangles flying over the desert, just vacuuming up all this data. And so who got that data and what was it used for and who was it sold to? Because they sold it at some point. So in China, in 2013, China's propaganda chief, his name is Liu Wei, whose official office is the State Internet Information Office. he directed his 2.6 million operatives to create fake social media accounts to spread quote unquote positive energy, to control the direction of sensitive discussions online about things like the Uyghur concentration camps and organ harvesting and all of these crematoriums that are popping up around China, causing, the smog that people are seeing. It's well known in their country.
If you want proof to what Roscoe said earlier about governments using illegal people who how do I describe it? People who were part of the mafia, part of media, part of regimes that were evil. Operation Paperclip, all the Nazis that were ushered over here. The other one is it Greg? Is it Greg Serpo? God damn, I don't want to give you the wrong name. Do you remember? You know the story Mississippi Burning, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how the FBI got that Klanman to confess?
Oh man, I kind of remember, but refresh my memory.
Okay, they had a couple of mafia hitmen on the payroll. They sent this mafia hitman down there, and oddly enough, the mob is mostly was not liberal. What are they? The other term. There's another term for it. No, the mob's not. Well, it's kind of conservative.
They are conservative because they're Catholic. They're Catholic conservatives.
You're right. So they sent this mob hitman down there. He gets down there, starts joking around with these Klanmen, drinking, and he finds one. He gets him drunk. He's a good old boy, takes him out, tortures him for hours. He admitted to everything. So I want to say it was Greg Serpico. It's not Serpico. It's Greg something like that. This guy literally was killing folks for the FBI, but he was also killing people, and that's how he kept getting out of trouble, was that he would contact his FBI handler, and he would literally let him, hey, man, don't worry about it. So, yes, the FBI has used mafia hitmen to do shit. And so that's just the point I'm making, is that when Roscoe is telling you that, hey, this is a thing, our government is known for hiring evil people or using evil people to amends, or what happens when, okay, I get it, the KGB is the Kremlin's all broken up. There's no more KGB. There were enemies, but they hire those officers, or they use them as advisors. Okay, what should we do? Okay, here's what they even had like a whole apartment complex where the whole place was bugged. Like you would flush the toilet and the pipe would go and empty into something, and they could see, okay, this guy just tore up this shit, and he tore up this document and flushed it down the toilet, and they would fish that document out and try to piece it together and read it. Literally, they were doing that kind of stuff. So their covert skills were superior to ours. Or even when we had talked about that there was an operating system that was given out free across the world, and that was because our military had a back door into everybody's operating system. Where did they get that idea from? It's from hackers that they busted. Like, okay, this is a good. So when Roscoe tells you that these traits, these what's the word I'm looking for? These skills, this covert, illegal, subversive stuff we talk about it in light, like, hey, that's a bad thing, it's a bad thing, but the whole time our government is hiring those people, or, hey, well, we'll give you a pardon if you show us how you did it. How many of these security experts that work for these Fortune 500 companies were people who actually robbed them? It was a dude that robbed American Express and basically got them. I can't remember the dude. I don't want to. I just remember one of my professors was a Kappa, and he's like, yeah, the dude that runs American Express is a Kappa. And they got hit by this dude for a bunch of money. So they said, okay, we won't press charges if you come work for us and show us what you did, so nobody else can do it to us. That's literally what happens. Those skills they come at a premium. They'll pay you for them.
So a lot of information is stolen, and people just don't wake up out of their pool of slobber to even pay attention. So there was a hack that happened. It happened through the United States government. It was the Office of Personnel Management, and it was hacked by China. And the NSA, former NSA director Mike McConnell, he said that China hacked every major corporation in the United States. But he didn't explain why the NSA had failed to protect the country from such a foreign attack. But what happened is they got all this information. It was basically anybody who completed a Form SF-86, a 127-page document in which federal employees with access to classified information detail every imaginable aspect of their lives, from the medical history, financial records, sexual partners, past employment, drug use history, mental illness, and every place they have ever lived, detailed family trees, every foreign country they ever visited, and even the polygraph results the employees had admitted to. Dude, this it's crazy. I mean, it talks about all this stuff, but this hack underscores a basic point about the government's approach to technological change. Our leaders, our elected leaders, and those in the executive branch are simply far too linear in their thinking to appreciate the growing exponential nature of the challenges we face. Yeah. I mean, dude, there was North Korea's hack of Sony Pictures. You know what I'm saying? Remember that? And that was just, dude, but the funny part about it is then, like, Obama just said, he's like, all right, I know how to do this shit. And he just turned off the internet to fucking North Korea. Like, I'm going to turn this shit off.
Hey, but you know, there's a hacker that's been doing it even since that movie's been over. There's a hacker that just keeps shutting off their internet, and they will not talk about it. He's like, look, I do it once or twice a month now, just to be a dick. Look, we're trying to get you guys to understand that, you know, our government is not ours anymore, and we're victims of the government instead of participating in the government. We tell you all the time, like, learn, you know, civics and all that kind of stuff, and realize who does what, and pathway to power. You know, it's difficult to explain how fucked up the world has become, but there's no excuse for letting yourself go, letting people take advantage of you, because the bottom line is that they can blackmail you. You know, who's to say they're not? You know, these hackers will blackmail you. The government will blackmail you. These big businesses, Google and all those, they'll blackmail you. You would hate for them to send out a report or make it known what your browser history says.
So
you would hate.
Check this out, man. Something that people need to know about about bots, you know, how there's fake, you know, AI out there making posts and all this stuff, right? Well, your computer can be part of a hacker's botnet. And a botnet is a robot network of infested computers under the remote control of a hacker. And these zombie-infected machines are taken over and enslaved to unite in botnets. And these can be used for a variety of criminal services, such as spreading malware, spreading DDoS attacks, disseminating spam, and hosting illicit content. But phones and computers can even be drafted into a botnet army upon infection by malware. And the problem is, like, the people whose device is part of this botnet don't realize it. But the tool that they use, there's two parts to it. They will need to steal your credit card details, your bank logons, and identity. But they also leave behind a persistent backdoor in your system that gives them perpetual access to your machine to do with it as they please. So they can come in and out as they want.
Sorry about that. No, this is a big deal in the late 90s. There were so many hackers that were springboarding off other people's network to the point where they thought about, okay, suppose I hack GM just to break into like Wells Fargo or something like that. That they wanted these companies or even to carry insurance, like, okay, hacker insurance. So okay, if a hacker were trying to hack the Pentagon directly, they wouldn't be able to get through. But if a hacker hacks into some big company, then uses their network to springboard into the Pentagon, that kind of thing. So there was a point when they thought about having like insurance for that kind of shit. So like what Ross was telling you is literally you can be part of a network, and people can use your IP address to break into somebody else's system, and they thought about making you liable for that shit. It was that widespread, and it's probably, like you said, things have only gotten worse. It's just something that I think they realize that wouldn't be fair. That's just not fair. There's just no way to make you liable for some shit I did. You know, if I broke in your house, logged into your computer, and printed a bunch of shit at my job, they wouldn't be able to track me. But okay, Mr. Roscoe, Turbo Negro, we're going to penalize you for it. It's just no way to do it. But on the same token, I've known at my job where they've had to have known who did some fucked up shit, but they didn't want to process. They didn't want to prosecute. Excuse me.
Okay, famous botnet is called Game Over Zeus, and it controlled more than 1 million computers worldwide, and they stole about $100 million. But another one came after that was called Zero Access, and Zero Access controlled 2 million zombie computers, dude. So of course you can imagine with twice the amount of resources, they can steal twice the amount of money, or even 4 to 5 times the amounts of money. But these are things to keep in mind, because your security on your computer is important. But it brings me back to not just computer security, because that's a bigger part of it, man. But okay, it's not computer hackers that are just committing these crimes. You have Google and Amazon and Yahoo and all these companies that are stealing your data, that are after your data. And the crazy part about it is that, Google, they have become so powerful that they act as if they are above reproach. Mm-hmm. They go about changing the rules. They limit people's access to their browser. The crazy part about it is, okay, for example, Safari is an Apple browser, okay? And Google blocked a person's access to Safari. How the fuck is that possible? Because that's not their product, and they don't control the network. So how are they doing this? So when you look into it, some of these things that happen, they happen because what they'll say is it's a rogue hacker. It's a rogue employee. But then you look into it and you see that employee wasn't fired. That employee got a raise after that, as a matter of fact. So that means somebody was doing their own cloak and dagger operation, and they just didn't want to make it seem like it was a prime directive. They didn't want to make it seem like that this was like in a official on the books operation or program that was being enacted by some department within the company.
It's like a spy. If you're caught, we'll deny we deny all knowledge of you, and you're on your own, kid.
Yep. But see, the act that I'm talking about was when these Google cars were driving around to map neighborhoods, and people noticed that their data was being vacuumed up. Like all their Wi-Fi and their metadata was being vacuumed up, and it was traced back to Google. And that's how people figured out that these cars that are driving around the neighborhood, just taking pictures. That's all they're doing, just taking pictures. No, they're taking way more than pictures. They're taking all your data. And see, the crazy part about it is that when they get, put on blast about this, then they threaten people's lives. Because Dr. Robert Epstein, his wife was killed by being run off the road. And then his life has been threatened multiple times. Right? So this goes to show that, these people feel like they're above the law. They really feel like they got some fucking, some lab coat mafia where they can go and do what the fuck they want. But this attitude is prevalent in Silicon Valley. There's all this going on. But see, what's going on is they're so full of themselves that they feel like they can influence not just only this nation, but other nations in the direction, their course of history. They were working with the Chinese in 2009, and come to find out that the Chinese were hacking them the entire time. And so they were kicked out of China, and it was a program called Dragonfly, and they were kicked out of China. And then they came back offering new technology to the Chinese, which the Chinese then used to track their population. And so then what happens is all this facial recognition technology starts popping up over China. And what does that look like? And so what you see is they're using heat signatures and they're using facial recognition to control crowds. Well, okay, if there's too many heat signatures in one area, that means people are gathering right there. Well, we need to break it up, break it up, break it up. How many times has a black person heard a cop say that shit? Break it up, guys, break it up. For what? What the fuck are you trying to break up, man? What are you afraid of?
It's not illegal.
Yeah, but to them it's illegal. And so Google was helping them with all that illegality. Okay? And then they were like, this is how you control a population. So then what happens? You start to see the same thing that was in that was in China, where the Chinese first put the cameras in the city. Then they put them in the towns. Then they put them in the villages, on bridges, everywhere. And they're recording everything, license plate numbers. They're at ATMs. Everything is connected now in China.
All your movement is being tracked, and you keep convincing yourself that it's normal. Like, hey, this is not a big deal.
But what is this getting to? It's getting to the gamification of society. These people who have awkward social skills, don't know how to meet people, don't know how to interact, they want to control everything that is other. Right? So then what do? They are seeking to make no difference between the physical world and the online world, so that everything inanimate has an RFID chip in it, and everything is tagged, and the entire planet is a computer, and everything from the crops and when to rotate the crops and the amount of the harvest and the amount of fertilizer that's put on the plants, and it can't be organic, it has to be synthetic fertilizer, and all this nonsense is to make the planet into one big ass computer. And so in China, what you're seeing is what they want the future to be, because everything is controlled, everything is cataloged. But then not on top of that, we're not going to stop there, because we're going to get to know you from the outside in instead of the inside out. The inside out instead of the outside in. So what that means is, well, there's going to be sensors on everything. And then wearables. See, they try and make this shit like real cute and stuff.
Flashable.
Listen,
cute.
This stuff called wearables. Keep your eyes peeled for anything called a wearable. It started with steps. People getting the Fitbits. Man, 3 years ago, 2018 through 2019, everybody had a fucking Fitbit. I'm like, I don't need that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm cool. Like, I know if I run for 2 miles, I'm good. I don't have to get steps in. I'm not such a fucking lard ass that I don't have to be reminded I need to get up and go walk around. Look, I saw a commercial yesterday for this thing called a sleep sock for a baby. And it started with the baby cam, the nanny cam. And you could watch the baby in the next room while you were laying in your bed, banging the wife.
That makes sense.
Hold on.
Okay.
No. Yeah, that's how it starts, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
It's harmless. It's harmless.
And then you got the doorbell camera. Oh, yeah, that's good. This, keeps people from stealing my shit. Okay. All right, cool. And then you have a sleep sock, right? You have this sleep sock that you put on the baby, and it monitors the baby's vitals. Are we in the fucking hospital again? Do we have to monitor everything on this fucking kid like he's a fucking lab rat? If I hear the kid cry, I can just get up and go
get up off your fat ass and go look.
That's right, dude.
See, what it is that they want to make it fashionable to be a parent.
And they're making it fashionable to be lazy.
Yeah, I dig it. And so nobody recognizes that these things as being bad, because you're more worried about convenience than you worry about your own state of mind, your own well-being. You're like, I need to be convenient. For what? What do you hope to accomplish? What are you getting out of this? They don't know. It's just the fact that they can brag about some shit they got because they saw it on a reality show. You're not famous. Stop leveraging your soul just because you want what the famous people got. It's going to backfire. Please recognize this shit.
But see,
and
the problem
what you're
with
afraid of.
Go ahead.
No, what you're afraid of, being blackmailed. If somebody else was to blackmail you, you would go nuts. But you're blackmailing yourself. You're giving away what makes you already. Cut that shit the fuck out, for real.
So the problem with this wearable technology is it takes the Internet of Things one step further, or should I say one step closer to you internally. So let's see, we've already talked about on past shows about how Elon Musk wants to put a computer in your head. So you can be like him. So you can hear music in your head. I already hear music in my head. I don't need to stick a Walkman in my head. I don't need to stick an iPod in my fucking head. Dude, let me tell you something. Listen, I would be working some boring ass menial task type of job in the past. And I would be at my station working. And people would come up to me and they'd be like, man, you 1,000 miles away. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm watching a movie. I'm watching a movie in my head. I watch movies in my head all the time. I play music in my head all the time. I create music in my head all the time. I write stories in my head all the time. I create art in my head all the time. But I don't want anybody else to do that unless they want to do that. And I'm not going to put something out there so everybody can do that because it's not natural. And that becomes the next question. What's natural? See, I'll answer that question by saying they're always trying to teach a person how to think. But a man cannot teach another man how to feel. That is something that comes natural. You have to do that on your own. Why? Because that is experiential. That comes about from living.
Look. Sometimes, like, when we talk about intelligence, like, if you call somebody dumb, they get offended. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, like, I didn't call you dumb. I said what you was doing was dumb. And people get offended. But I'm like, you know what? And you've heard me say this before. You know this. To me, intelligence is a verb. Intelligence is an activity. If you ain't acting smart, then I'm not going to deem you to be smart. But right now, we make intelligence more of an emotion.
That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.